right, Mr. Howell, I think it's ready for testing. Let her rip.
I'm gonna dress up like a girl, and you can't make me. You can't make me. You can't make me.
Do you recognise this show? That's right. It is Gilligan's Island, the famous sitcom of the 60s that once stormed American television, becoming a legend in the hearts of many people at that time. But behind that layer of comedy lies a chaotic and unbelievable backstage world that was deliberately hidden for many years. There was someone who once drifted off the coast during filming in a state of extreme panic. There was someone who hated their role so much that they cut ties with the entire crew for life. And that is only the tip of the iceberg. Get ready to uncover 20 strange, unbelievable, and shocking truths about Gilligan's Island. Things that even die-hard fans have never heard of. Right now, everything will be revealed in this video. Tina Louise. Ginger hated the role and cut off all connections. Among the 7 people stranded on the deserted island of Gilligan's Island, Ginger Grant, the proud Hollywood star, always stood out like a gem lost in the wilderness. Her glamorous beauty, elegant aura, and the complete contrast with the wild setting made her the centre of attention from the very first episodes. The audience adored Ginger, but ironically, the actress who played her, Tina Louise, never accepted and even resented the character. Tina joined the project with the desire to portray a figure with depth, a role filled with cinematic weight, not a comedic symbol confined in repetitive jokes. Yet from the moment the show aired, Ginger was instantly branded as a walking vase. That cage made Tina feel belittled, trapped in an image she never wanted. The frustration grew, seeping into her relationship with co-stars, especially Dawn Wells, the innocent Mary Ann. There was no public quarrel, but the backstage atmosphere was always tense. Tina kept her distance, avoided contact, and on many occasions refused to pose for photos or participate in promotional campaigns. When the series ended, most of the cast still remained attached to their characters, appearing in reunion specials, animated series, or interviews. Only Tina Louise chose to disappear from all of it. She rejected every invitation to return, did not voice Ginger in Gilligan's Planet, and almost completely cut ties with her colleagues. For the audience, Ginger was forever an irreplaceable part of their childhood. But for Tina, that role was a cursed shadow she longed to escape. Yet those simmering conflicts were only the beginning, because soon after the entire crew would face a horrifying real-life incident, an accident at sea that nearly swallowed them whole. Jerry Van Dyke rejected the role of Gilligan because of a failed sitcom. Before Bob Denver wore the sailor hat and became an immortal icon of American television, the role of Gilligan was actually handed directly to Jerry Van Dyke, the younger brother of comedy legend Dick Van Dyke. But after reading the script, Jerry immediately turned it down. He bluntly called it one of the worst things I've ever read, a meaningless sitcom about people stranded on an island with no depth, no future. In Jerry's eyes, Gilligan's Island was nothing more than a cheap joke. He believed he was destined for something bigger. That belief led him to a project he was certain would be a hit, the sitcom My Mother the Car, where the main character speaks with the spirit of his mother, who inhabits a car. Jerry placed his entire career on this bet, and lost completely. My Mother the Car quickly became a television disaster, crushed by critics, abandoned by audiences, and to this day is still remembered as one of the worst sitcoms of all time. Meanwhile, Bob Denver, who took on the role after Jerry, stepped directly into television history. He remained tied for life to the image of the clumsy yet lovable sailor, and became an irreplaceable face in American TV memory. For Jerry Van Dyke, that decision marked one of the most bitter regrets of his career. But that personal misstep was not the only mistake, because even the show itself carried an error from the very beginning, hidden right in its name. The cast was truly adrift at sea while filming a promo. During a promotional shoot off the coast of California, CBS decided to rent a small boat to capture a few shots of real ocean scenery. The idea sounded harmless: a few minutes of filming, a gentle breeze, calm waves. But only moments later, before the cameras had even warmed up, a dense fog suddenly descended, swallowing the entire vessel. Visibility vanished, radio signals cut off. The crew, still in their character costumes, began drifting into unknown waters, completely disoriented. Gilligan still wore his red shirt, Ginger draped in her thin silk dress, Mary Ann barefoot. And for the first time, they were truly stranded at sea. No props, no special effects, no director shouting cut. Had it not been for the timely intervention of the US Coast Guard, Gilligan's Island might have ended right there as a television tragedy. When the rescue team finally reached them, the first sight they witnessed was Alan Hale Jr. Skipper, standing at the bow, genuinely commanding like a real captain in the middle of chaos no one could have imagined. Some footage from that incident was later secretly inserted into the show's opening sequence. But from that day forward, CBS imposed an absolute ban on all open sea filming. Ocean waves would be faked with industrial fans and studio water tanks. No one in the crew ever wanted to relive the terror of drifting for real. Yet after that haunting moment at sea, few could have imagined that the greatest threat to Gilligan's Island would not come from the ocean, but from a desk. The show almost carried the title Gilligan's Travels. Few people know that Gilligan's Island almost debuted on television under a completely different name, Gilligan's Travels. This idea came from Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of the series, when he was inspired by Gulliver's Travels, the classic work about strange adventures. Schwartz thought that such a wordplay would create a witty sound, evoking a sense of whimsical exploration. But there was a major problem. Gilligan's Island was not a journey. There was no movement, no new destination. It was the story of people trapped in one place, circling through repetitive situations, trying to escape, but never succeeding. The name Gilligan's Travels accidentally suggested something entirely wrong. It sounded too literary, too academic, and even risked making audiences believe this was a fantasy series or an adult fairy tale about space travel. In the end, Sherwood Schwartz abandoned the flowery choice and embraced the truth: Gilligan's Island. Short, memorable, and filled with resonance. A name so simple, it seemed almost meaningless, yet it became a lasting symbol for decades to come. But even when the name was secured and the show began to take shape, Gilligan's Island still could not avoid the cruelest stab in the back, delivered by the very people who ran it. The show was cancelled at the last minute to make room for Gunsmoke. After 3 successful seasons with a loyal audience, CBS had approved the plan for a 4th season. The cast began settling their lives around Los Angeles, with many even buying homes near the studio, ready to commit long-term to the project. Spirits were high. Script ideas had already been drafted, and everyone believed they were about to embark on a new journey with the most famous island on American television. But everything collapsed in a single short executive meeting. The decision did not come from poor ratings, not from scandal, not from any professional reason. It came from the personal preference of the CBS CEO's wife. She was a devoted fan of Gunsmoke, a long-running Western series that was on the verge of cancellation. And so, instead of renewing, Gilligan's Island CBS executives chose to rescue Gunsmoke by seizing the time slot already reserved for Gilligan. There was no official announcement, no farewell episode, no closure. The 4th season was cancelled during its very last week, and the entire cast only learned they had lost their jobs through the newspapers. But perhaps the thing abandoned the longest in the history of Gilligan's Island was not the SS Minnow, but its very first episode. The pilot episode was lost for nearly 30 years. The very first test episode was filmed in 1963, before Gilligan's Island officially premiered. But when the CBS executives reviewed the original cut, they were not fully confident in the direction of the series. Not because it was bad, but because it was far too different. The pacing was unstable, the structure loose, and the cast incomplete. Ginger at that time was not a glamorous Hollywood star, but a quiet secretary. The wise professor that everyone remembers was initially portrayed by another actor, whose manner was completely unsuitable. CBS did not cancel it, but neither did they release it. The pilot was shelved in the archives, lying dormant for nearly 3 decades, as if it had never existed. Only in 1992, during a wave of nostalgia for classic series, was it finally broadcast. Audiences were stunned to see a completely different Gilligan's Island, an unfinished version, like a forgotten parallel shadow. But not all the pain surrounding Gilligan's Island came from scripts or production. There were real injuries hidden behind the laughter, and no one knew until long after it had passed. Alan Hale Jr. Skipper broke his arm but kept filming. In one of the familiar scenes, Skipper climbing a coconut tree and suddenly losing balance, Alan Hale Jr. fell hard to the ground. The impact broke his arm. For any other actor, that would have been a legitimate reason to stop, see a doctor, or adjust the schedule. But Alan chose silence. He told no director, sought no medical help, and did not confide in his co-stars. He simply bandaged himself, endured the pain, and carried on. From that day on, he wore long sleeves, cleverly hid his injured arm from the camera, and adjusted every movement so the audience noticed nothing unusual. The chases, the pratfalls, the bursts of energy remained intact. No one realised that behind each gesture was real pain masked by resolve and devotion. When the truth was revealed years later, the crew was left speechless. Alan Hale Jr. was not only the skipper on screen, he was the silent pillar, the true captain of the cast, both on set and behind the scenes. Yet some secrets did not come from accidents or scripts. They came from the richest woman on the island, Mrs. Howell. Natalie Schaefer. Mrs. Howell hid her real age, older than her husband by 13 years. Natalie Schaefer, who portrayed the aristocratic Mrs. Lovey Howell, always appeared on screen with elegance, grace, and a youthfulness far beyond her years. When Gilligan's Island aired, audiences assumed she was only in her early 40s, perhaps even younger than her on-screen husband, actor Jim Backus. But the truth kept hidden until after her death left everyone stunned. Natalie was born in 1900. That meant when she played Mrs. Howell, she was already in her 60s, and older than her husband by 13 years. It was not only a spectacular illusion of age, but also proof of the meticulous image control of a seasoned Hollywood star. Natalie kept her real age secret so carefully that even close co-stars never dared to ask. She maintained the lifestyle, wardrobe, and aura of a high society lady, not only on screen, but in real life. Once, when her home phone line malfunctioned and the operator ignored her repair request, she calmly said, "I am Mrs. Howell of Gilligan's Island." Less than 30 minutes later, a technician arrived, and she was ready with autographs. Yet the surprises about Gilligan's Island did not stop there, because even the animals on the island were real. The animals on the show were real with no special effects.
Please. Gladys, give me my hat!
Although the entire setting of Gilligan's Island was built on a studio lot in Los Angeles, the producers wanted the island to feel genuinely wild. To achieve that, they used live animals instead of props or effects. Real monkeys, real birds, real parrots, even lizards, all appeared naturally in many scenes. It sounded exciting, but behind the scenes it was chaos. The monkeys constantly leapt around, stole props, and climbed onto the actors' shoulders in the middle of filming. On one occasion, a parrot landed directly on Bob Denver's head and began screeching into the microphone, ruining the entire audio. The birds often flew into the frame or crashed into the cameras as if they too wanted to appear in the show. Instead of controlling the environment, the cast and crew had to adapt to a world where anything could happen. But that very disorder, brought something no special effect could ever replicate: the feeling that the island was alive, raw, wild, and unpredictable. And when the adventures on the deserted island began to run out of ideas, the producers decided to take the absurdity of Gilligan's Island to a whole new level, quite literally. Gilligan's Planet, the animated version in outer space. In the early 1980s, the legendary island unexpectedly returned in another form, the animated series Gilligan's Planet. This time, the setting was no longer blue seas and sandy beaches. After years of being stranded, the castaways suddenly built a spaceship and accidentally landed on a distant planet where they once again, yes, exactly, got stranded. No coconuts, no ocean, but the same chaotic situations repeated only now among stars and alien creatures. The surprise was that most of the original cast came back to voice their animated counterparts, except for Tina Louise, who continued to refuse any connection to Gilligan's Island. The role of Ginger was voiced by another actress, but everything else retained the original spirit, only the backdrop had changed beyond Earth. Remarkably, Gilligan's Planet was also one of the last cartoons to use a laugh track for adult viewers, the canned laughter that had dominated American television for decades. Though it lasted only 13 episodes, the series stood as a bizarre and foolish ellipsis to a story that had already been absurd from the very beginning. But sometimes the satire was not inside the storyline but hidden in the very name of the boat that carried them to the island. SS Minnow, a direct political joke. SS Minnow, the boat that carried the 7 characters to the deserted island, was actually a sly political jab crafted by Sherwood Schwartz. The name Minnow was chosen to mock Newton Minnow, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission (FCC) in the early 1960s, who once declared that American television was a vast wasteland. Schwartz did not argue publicly. He simply named the boat Minnow, a small, weak, almost invisible fish, as an open act of sarcasm. Not Titan, not victory, not liberty, just a tiny minnow easily lost and stranded forever. Not everyone involved in Gilligan's Island gained rewards when the show became immortal on television. But one man looked further than anyone else and knew how to turn that fame into an advantage for the rest of his life. Dawn Wells, Mary Ann, the only one who received residuals. Dawn Wells, the sweet and wholesome. Mary Ann was the only cast member to receive residual payments from Gilligan's Island. Not because of luck, but because of a small detail in the contract, one that most of her colleagues overlooked. At the time of signing with CBS, Dawn was married to Larry Rosen, a seasoned talent agent in the entertainment industry. It was Rosen who carefully noticed the clause limiting residuals, which applied only to the first few reruns, and demanded it be changed. The producers, who never believed a silly sitcom like Gilligan's Island would last long, agreed. When the show went on to be rerun for decades, most of the cast received nothing more. But Dawn Wells was different. Thanks to a single line added in time, she became the only one still being paid every time viewers turned on their TVs to see Gilligan stumble or Skipper shout. Among a cast full of talent, inequality showed not only in paychecks, but even in the opening theme itself. Bob Denver fought to have his co-stars named in the opening song. During the entire first season, the theme song introduced each character by name, until the last two, the Professor and Mary Ann. Instead of being named, they were lumped together in a vague phrase, and the rest. No names, no roles, no recognition. Bob Denver. The actor playing Gilligan refused to accept this. Even as the lead, he did not consider himself more important than his co-stars. By the time Season 2 approached, Denver issued an ultimatum to CBS if Russell Johnson, the Professor, and Dawn Wells, Mary Ann were not included in the theme song, he would remove his own name from the credits. Simple, firm, uncompromising. CBS initially hesitated due to the cost of re-recording the song, but pressure from their star forced them to concede. From season 2 onward, the Professor and Mary Ann officially joined the lyrics a small change, but one that affirmed the equal value of the entire cast. Yet the most unusual fact about Bob Denver was not tied to the island but to the map of the United States itself. Bob Denver, descendant of the man who named the city of Denver. Before becoming the goofy Gilligan on television, Bob Denver carried an unexpected legacy. His surname Denver was not a stage name nor a coincidence, but a trace of real history. His great-grandfather, James William Denver, once served as the governor of the Kansas Territory in the mid-19th century, a political figure of influence during that time. In 1858, when pioneers established a new town in Colorado, they chose the name Denver as a way to win favor with the federal government, hoping for a postal route to be approved. The name was not only accepted, but became the official title of Colorado's capital city to this very day. More than a century later, the descendant of that politician gained fame in a completely different way. Not through speeches, not through power, but by wearing a sailor's hat and running around on a fabricated island. From politics to sitcoms, from the parliament to television, the name Denver traced a strange journey across American history, ending with the image of a bumbling fool remembered by generations. But if you ever dreamed of swimming in the clear blue waters of Gilligan's Island, it is better to wake up. The ocean was just a tank, filthy and freezing. On screen, Gilligan's Island looked like a tropical paradise, skies, bright blue, sand white and soft waves, inviting with the cast, splashing happily as if they knew nothing of cold. But the truth was harsh. The ocean was only a man-made water tank built at the CBS Studio Center in Studio City, California. And that tank resembled nothing more than an abandoned swimming pool, freezing dirty and unpleasant. Because chlorine could not be used, it would damage costumes and irritate the actors' skin. The water often turned murky, foul-smelling, and nothing like the tropical hue viewers imagined. On early mornings or cool days, the temperature dropped so low that actors' lips turned purple and their teeth chattered. Yet on camera, they had to laugh, dive and splash like they were living in a dream vacation postcard. To maintain the illusion, the crew angled the cameras carefully, relied on lighting, and even used industrial fans to whip up artificial waves. The actors endured shivering beneath the surface while pretending to enjoy paradise. While audiences dreamed of being stranded on that island, the cast only longed to finish the scene and climb out to find warmth. And when one formula had already created a television phenomenon, it was only natural the producers would try it again, only with a different setting. Dusty's Trail, the failed cowboy copy. After the nationwide success of Gilligan's Island, Sherwood Schwartz attempted to recreate that magic in a completely different setting, the Wild West. In 1973, he launched Dusty's Trail with Bob Denver once again as the clumsy central character. But instead of being stranded on an island this time, they were left behind during a westward migration. The same familiar archetypes appeared: the wealthy man, the sweet country girl, the glamorous beauty, the bookish intellectual. But instead of being washed ashore, they had simply lost their wagon train. A cowboy version of Gilligan's Island. It sounded promising, but audiences thought otherwise. Dusty's Trail was criticised as dull, repetitive, and lacking originality. Most reviews summed it up bluntly, just like the original, only worse. The show was cancelled after a single season, fading into obscurity within months. Yet even as their paths diverged, there was one rare occasion when the castaways reunited, but this time in a completely different television world. The cast reunited in the sitcom Roseanne. In 1995, the hit sitcom Roseanne produced a special episode titled Sherwood Schwartz, a Loving Tribute, honouring the creator of two classic series, Gilligan's Island and The Brady Bunch. What shocked audiences was the return of nearly the entire Gilligan's Island cast, though in completely different roles. Bob Denver played Jackie Russell Johnson. The Professor portrayed Becky's husband Dawn Wells became Darlene, and most notably, Tina Louise, for the first time in years, agreed to appear alongside her former co-stars. In that episode, each actor embodied a character from the Roseanne universe, creating scenarios both strange and nostalgic. For viewers, it was more than a reunion. It was one of the rare moments when the castaways could be seen together in the same frame since the series ended. There was no SS Minnow, no coconut trees, no deserted island. Only another television family welcoming them with laughter and gratitude. But even though they could reunite on screen, there was still one major secret about the main character of Gilligan's Island that was never revealed throughout the series. Gilligan's real name was Willie Gilligan. Throughout the entire series, the name Gilligan was spoken hundreds of times. But that was only his surname. The character's full name, according to the show's creator, Sherwood Schwartz, was actually Willie Gilligan. This name never appeared on screen, no actor ever called him Willie, and the scripts never mentioned it. Only in a later interview did Schwartz confirm this fact, leaving many fans stunned. The absence of a first name in the show made the character even more peculiar. Gilligan was the fool, the cause of every disaster. Yet he was also warm, friendly, and beloved. Audiences never needed to know his real first name. Gilligan alone was enough to become legendary, a name never revealed on television, yet existing silently behind the scenes. And from that comedic shadow, Gilligan's influence would reach far beyond imagination, even into outer space. A NASA astronaut was inspired by Gilligan's Island. Scott Kelly, one of NASA's most veteran astronauts, once spent 340 consecutive days aboard the International Space Station ISS, one of the longest missions in US history. When asked about his earliest inspiration, many expected him to mention great names in the space field. But his answer shocked everyone Gilligan's Island. For Kelly, childhood meant watching people stranded in a strange world, constantly trying to escape from a place they did not belong. That series planted the seed of imagination, nurturing his dream to leave Earth and explore the unknown. Even without rockets or spacecraft, that island became his first symbol of discovery, a place where anything could happen and where humans had to adapt to the unpredictable. The ultimate destination for Kelly was the universe. But the starting point of that journey came from something very earthly, an invitation to Hawaii. The first episode was filmed in Hawaii, a perfect bait for the cast. In 1963, the pilot episode of Gilligan's Island was filmed in Hawaii. When Sherwood Schwartz invited Natalie Schaefer to play Mrs. Howell, she hesitated. But the moment she learned that the location would be Oahu, she immediately agreed, believing it would be nothing more than a paid vacation. She was convinced the show would never actually air. Natalie was not the only one. Several actors accepted the offer thinking it was just a short test project, a few weeks of filming and then done. But when CBS approved full production, the entire cast had to leave Hawaii and return to Los Angeles, where the deserted island was nothing more than a studio water tank and artificial set pieces. The disappointment was inevitable. They had dreamed of seaside dinners and sunny days on the beach. But reality meant shivering in a cold tank surrounded by fake scenery. Yet without that initial vacation bait, Gilligan's Island might never have secured the perfect cast that made history. On the surface, Gilligan's Island seemed like just a light-hearted sitcom, but behind it lay a treasure chest of strange, surprising, and almost unbelievable truths. From real-life accidents, hidden conflicts, to tiny details laced with meaning, all combined to create a golden chapter in television history that can never be repeated. The 20 secrets you have just discovered not only reveal stories few had ever heard, but also explain why this island continues to live in the hearts of viewers across generations. If you were surprised, delighted, or have your own memories of Gilligan's Island, leave a comment below. Hit like if you want more behind-the-scenes journeys, and share this video so your friends can also uncover the unexpected truths behind this legendary island.